Just remember who you are, that your life is like an egg, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if it's broken by an inside force, life begins. This is the limitless model that I talk about in my new book that Sam was talking about. If you are not getting a result in your life, you have a limitation in one of three areas. Either in your mindset, your motivation, or the methods you're using. So what I can appreciate about Sam's approach is he takes a very holistic view on transformation and real change. That it's not any one element, it's all of them combined in a synergistic way. Where all three of them connect is what I call the limitless state. Your mindset is what you believe is possible. But if you have a limitation there, like I did, because I was the boy with the broken brain, if you have a belief that you're not smart enough, that's going to affect all your results. These communities are so important, especially now, because there's so much negativity out there, right? To be around people that encourage you, that inspire you. Well, Sam himself is kind of like the Professor X. He's very exceptional, in my mind, so I'm learning a lot from his models and frameworks. With great responsibility comes great power. When we take responsibility for these 8 areas, we have great power to make them better. We're redrawing the boundaries and borders of really what's possible in our life. Difficult times, they could define you, they could diminish you, or they could develop you. You decide.
Welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I've been looking forward to this. It's good to see you again, my friend.
What's it like being in New York at the moment?
That's a good question. Fair. Well, first of all, I hope everyone who's tuning in is safe and they're strong and sanitized and all that good stuff. It's a challenge for New York City in general. I came here because it allows me to exercise my focus and my concentration. It's easy to focus and concentrate, and when you don't have a lot of distractions. But here in this city in general, it's allows me to exercise those muscles. But yeah, we're safe, and so we're very grateful for that.
So have you been still in your homes and apartments, or are you allowed to go out into the street?
Yeah, I live between New York City and Los Angeles. We chose to cocoon here because family close by.
Yeah.
We are allowed to go out on the streets, but we keep it very, very brief. And so we keep we're just better to be safe right now. And so for me, honestly, it's, although I had to change 2.5 months of travel, and I had 23 conferences that, disappeared. I'm an introvert, and so I've been preparing my whole life for this. This is okay for me. I love the connection here, though, absolutely. And I see we have a full house today, so I'm excited about talking about how people could become limitless in a limited world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in Australia, we've just released the restrictions this week. So it was this weekend.
Okay.
And it started yesterday, and I noticed that people were out in cafes, and streets were just streaming with people. It was surreal. And It's a nice sunny day here in Sydney, where some of our attendees are from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to get that sense of freedom, but we also felt a sense of freedom when we did go into shutdown, strangely enough. I don't know what happened psychologically, but a lot of people felt like there was no pressure to return calls, emails, to work. Excellent. But look, we'll kick it off. There's a lot of people that would know who Jim Kwik is, so he needs no introduction. But I just want to tell everyone that in an ever-growing world where information is flowing faster than the speed of thought, really our ability to expand the capacity of our mind is now essential. Absolutely. I felt like we crossed that I felt like we're on that cusp of evolutionary change in the last couple of years. And it's no longer survival of the fittest. I think it's survival of the smartest. And, you know, how you define smart comes down to how well you focus, how well you think, how well you study, how well you recall, and how well you read.
Mm.
And we've been told for many decades that our brains are a source of limitless potential, but nobody has ever come along and shown us step by step, you know, how to tap into that limitless potential of our mind. And so, Jim, when I asked you to, you know, come on this episode of A Higher Branch and talk to our communities, because I see, like, your book is really a defining book. It's amazing. I've read it from cover to cover. I love the structure. I love the methods, the models in it. And it actually does help you get smarter. It's just, you know, so on that note, Jim, welcome and thank you for writing such an incredible book, which is a culmination of so many years of wisdom.
Tim, it's a real pleasure again to be here with your community, and you know, especially during this time. So I'm excited to jump right into it, and I encourage people to take notes if you feel so inclined. And my goal is to give you some practical things you could do, so when we come out of this, we could be stronger, we could feel smarter, we could have our best foot forward.
Awesome. Now, I know there's a lot of executives that are listening to this right now and who are also parents. So I want to approach this from the point of view of teams and students as well. You know, I employ close to 300 people, and I spoke at a conference about 3 years ago, and I said to a lot of executives that, you know, we upgrade our computers every year in our offices. And I said, the biggest upgrade you can make is to those supercomputers of the minds of the people that are sitting and walking it through your offices. So for me personally, the book will be distributed to all my team, because I want them to upgrade their mind, and not just for, you know, the business purposes and business objectives, but I want them to make an impact in their personal lives, and I want to lift the average. And the thing that struck me first about your book is how you identified the supervillains that limit our brains. I really loved how you called that out. Do you want to just call out those 4 supervillains?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that some of the forces that hold us back are driven by technology, and I have a deep appreciation for technology that allows this to happen right now. We live in an exciting time. Sometimes where we take it for granted that we have access, unfettered access to the world's information. But along with that, it helps amplify also some of the things that might add undue stress on our minds and our peace, for ourselves, for our families, and also for our teams also as well. So I talk about 4 digital supervillains, the horsemen, if you will, of the not the mental apocalypse, but it definitely has an effect on our own mental health and mental performance. And so the first one is digital deluge, and I tend to alliterate everything and use mnemonics and use the same letters to help them become very easy to remember. But the reason why we go through these 4 is first, it's awareness, knowing that they exist, so that we know that it's something that we could deal with, so they're not invisible to us. So digital deluge is this information overwhelm, this information anxiety. Nowadays, the amount of information is doubling at dizzying speeds. And how can you catch up? Because how we learn it and process it and apply it hasn't changed a lot. So we live in an exponential world, but we still use traditional learning methods. And that growing gap creates a lot of stress. They call it information anxiety, higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness. And so it really disrupts things. And so that's why you mentioned we teach 5 superpowers. 2 of those that will overcome digital deluge is speed reading and also the study techniques those are the superpowers to handle that supervillain, if you will. The second one, besides digital deluge, is digital distraction. How do you maintain your level of concentration to get things done in a world full of rings and pings and dings and social media alerts and app notifications? How do you concentrate? So that's why we talk about the power of focus in the book. And then you have digital deluge, digital distraction. You have digital dementia, which is a new term in healthcare, where doctors and researchers are finding we're outsourcing our memories to these external memory devices, and these smart devices keep our to-dos, our calendars. It remembers all the numbers for us, and not that, I mean, how many phone numbers, Sam, did you did you used to remember? Pretty much.
Yep.
Just all of them. But how many phone numbers do we know now? Maybe one or two or three at best. And not that you want to memorize 200 numbers, but it should be concerning. We've lost the ability to remember one, or a PIN number, or a conversation we just had, or something we're going to say, or a meeting, or someone's name. And I believe in business and also in life, two of the most costly words are I forgot. I forgot to do it. I forgot to bring it. I forgot to say all those things. We lose time. We can lose some trust. Maybe hurt a relationship. So that's why the largest chapter in the book is actually on human memory, which I happened to write in Greece, because I found I wanted to not only base Limitless based on the latest brain science towards accelerated learning and human performance. I also wanted to know, what did ancient cultures do before there were printing presses, before there were computers to store information. And I found out that the mother of memory, the goddess of memory, her children were the 9 muses of science, literature, and art. So the mother of science, literature, and art is memory, and so important. So I wrote the book there in Greece, and where a lot of these techniques were really birthed, and put that in the chapter to help people with digital dementia. And then finally, besides digital deluge, digital distraction, digital dementia, you have digital deduction. And digital deduction is a term that I coined because I realized that working with clients, everyone from children with learning difficulties to aging seniors that are at risk of dementia. I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's, so I'm very passionate about it. We actually donate 100% of all the author proceeds to this book to educational charities and Alzheimer's research, 100% of what comes to me. So very passionate about it. But digital deduction is they're finding children don't have the analytical ability of previous generations. And they suggest the research is that because of technology is doing the thinking for us. And so because technology just tells you, what to eat, or what this is recommended, or fake news, or technology where we don't have to think, so we don't have to develop critical thinking skills, divergent creative thinking skills, be able to rationalize. And those are incredibly important superpowers to have today. And that's why we do a whole nother chapter on thinking. And so those are the 4 supervillains I wanted to call out, so that we see how it is affecting us individually, and also our families, and also our businesses, our teams. Because you're right, we are the asset that is for entrepreneurs, for those managing teams or a family. It's collective, mind power of the group.
Now, Jim, just on that, to digress, do you have a program for teams? Have you? I remember a couple of years ago when I spoke with you, you said you were developing one, or maybe you had already developed one. Do you actually have one?
So we train for teams specifically. So we do a lot of training, in-person training. We're putting it more and more online as we do. But here at Facebook, at Nike, at Google, SpaceX, General Electric, because they want to create learning organizations. We're learning, one of the things I wanted to say right up front is like, what I appreciate, and I've said this on stage, is I appreciate, you're the frameworks that you create. And so it's not, just one area. There's a harmony, whether it's love or family or work or friendship and learning and wealth and charity, it's overall health and energy. And so, one of the things that I like to focus on is how to be able to, say on stage, use this framework to elevate those areas. When it comes to companies specifically, I know the most not just profitable companies, but the companies that really to be able to grow are the ones that value constant learning and the development. That human capital is not only their largest line item, it's their largest asset that they have also as well. So we have online programs that companies will purchase.
Where can we find those? Where can we find those?
They can find that at quicklearning.com, and then they can contact so generally what we'll do is they'll go there and they'll buy purchase accounts for their teams, and they get see their other teams could go through a focus program over 30 days, a memory program over 30 days, a speed reading program over 21 days, a speed reading thinking program over 21 days also. So we do it every single day. And which we're very proud of. We have clients in over 195 countries there, and so I'm happy to send you information. But it's quicklearning.com.
That's awesome. That's really awesome, because so that's the method part, isn't it, of
Yes.
Your model for limitless learning. So do you want to take us through this beautifully perfect synergy between this model, because it just it doesn't miss any element, it doesn't miss any component, and so it overcomes every weakness that you can encounter or every obstacle on the way to learning.
It's something that I feel like is extreme. It's elegant, and it's powerful, and it's proven, and we're finding this across board. So I'll explain it, and what I would love for people who are participating in this conversation is to be able to draw this out for themselves. And if you've heard me explain it before, maybe it'll sink in even deeper now in terms of how you could use it. So I'm going to go through it really quickly. And all that people have to do is just draw 3 circles, 3 intersecting circles, Venn diagram. Kind of looks like Mickey Mouse with 2 ears that cross over a little bit, and then a face. So you have 3 intersecting circles. People could think of maybe the Olympics, but you have 3 of those circles. And so these are 3 M's. And I want everybody to think about, so it's personal to you. Think about an area of your life where you feel limited. Now, being limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless, the book, is the essence of it is advancing and progressing beyond what you believe is possible. And so that really is the goal. And so, but think about an area of your life, or you could use somebody else's life that's close to you, a partner, a family member, a teammate, where you feel like you're stuck. You're not making the progress. It could be in any of these categories that Sam teaches about, so it could be in love, it could be in family, it could be in your work, it could be in your level of contribution. What area are you not making progress in, where you feel like you're in a box almost? And that box is 3-dimensional, right? All boxes are 3-dimensional. So the 3 forces that keep you in that box, and these are the same 3 forces that will liberate you out of that box. And these are the 3 circles. So the first one, and I just made them for simplicity, 3 M's. And the first one is mindset. Now, mindset I'm defining as your assumptions and attitudes about something. It could be your attitudes, assumptions about the world. It could be your attitudes, assumptions about health. It could be your attitudes, assumptions about work. It could be your attitudes, assumptions, most importantly, about yourself. And so what would fall in this circle are things like what you believe is possible would be part of your mindset. What you believe you are capable of, because you could believe something is possible for Sam or somebody else, but you might not believe you're capable of it yourself. What would also fall in this category is what you believe you deserve. So the last circle, the last M, maybe the one on the bottom, is the methods, as you discussed. The thing is if I teach somebody a method in here on memory, let's say, remembering people's names, to keep it really simple, I think it's extremely important networking, business etiquette skill, because how are you going to show somebody you're going to care for their future, their finances, their family, their health, whatever it is, their children, whatever it is you have to offer them, if you don't care enough just to remember their name, right? Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But I could show you the method for remembering names. But if your mindset is, oh, I don't believe I'm capable of that, or I believe I'm too old, or I have a horrible memory, you're still going to be stuck in that box, even with the tools, the methods. So that's why mindset is important. Now, the second M is your motivation. Your motivation. because somebody could have the mindset that this is possible, and they could have the methods, they can know what to do often, but they're not motivated, so they're still stuck in that box again, right? And so when I talk in mindset, I introduce a term like lies. I talk about the 7 lies to learning that are generally widely globally accepted lies. And when I say a lie is an acronym, like most of the things I teach.
Yes.
Limited idea entertained. Limited idea entertained is not necessarily the truth that you're not smart enough, or your child's not smart, whatever it happens to be, or your teammate's not capable enough. But it's a limited idea that we choose to give energy to and think that it's the truth when it's really just BS. Belief systems, right? And so I talk about the 7 lies to learning, and it also happens to be the 7 lies also for keeping us from accessing more of our real potential. Things like genius is born. So I introduce the 7 lies, and then I also introduce the truth in terms of the research suggests, and then I introduce a new, more empowering belief that maybe genius isn't born, genius is built, right? And something that's more empowering, and then because that. If somebody just believes that genius is you're either born with it or not born, and I'm not just talking about IQ, I'm talking about, it's just financial genius, or their wealth, genius, their charity genius, their love genius, whatever they're excelling, right? If you feel like it's just innately born, then you're not going to try. That's going to keep you in that box. Well, there's lies also around motivation also, and motivation for most people, it's just a warm bath where you just have to keep on warming it up. You might get motivated, and then the next day, you're still not doing the things And I'm obsessed with the question, what's the difference that makes a difference in terms of why do some people consistently take action, and why do some people who have good intentions and really, really want to, but they still don't do it. And initially, Limitless was a book completely on the last circle. It was all on methods when I was about to turn it in. And when I was about to hit send, to my publisher, I asked myself a question. I said, okay, this is 28 years. This is my life. I've never put out a book for 3 decades. Is this the book? Like, will 100% of the people who read this book get the results that I promised them? And my honest answer was no, because it was missing those 2 other elements to the framework. It's a really great book on methods, on how to speed read and solve your problems, make good decisions, on how to support your children and studying and focusing and all that, but without the 2 other things. So I made it 3 books in one. So motivation for me, there's a formula for sustained motivation, and it's P times E times S3. And I'll just give you a brief summary of what this is. P times E times S3. For those things that you wanted, common sense is not always common practice. Like we kind of know what we should be doing, in all these areas that Sam talks about, but we don't do it. And so one of these 3 things is usually missing. And so let's deconstruct this. If we were going to design the ultimate motivated human being, like it's like a thought experiment, what are the elements that make somebody consistently follow through? And because that's the only evidence that somebody is motivated. If somebody could say they're motivated, someone on your team or a child could say they're motivated, or even you could say you're motivated, but if you're not doing the thing, it doesn't matter what you say or what you feel, it's what your example, right? And so the first thing I would say is you need the P, which is purpose. And I don't mean necessarily a life purpose. I mean the purpose for doing that action consistently. And so otherwise you're not going to follow through. And I also mean that it's not just, okay, let's use a simple example like, all right, well, the event I spoke at, it was like amazing. It was an incredible feel in the room, and then some most incredible faculty on areas like health and wellness and energy. Individuals like, let's take David Goggins, right? Astonishing. And so he has a purpose for working out the way he does, all the time. And it's not just an intellectual thing. And for people who succeed, let's use working out as an example. We all know we should move, and exercise. But we can know the benefits, a lot like logically, but we're not logical. We are more biological, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, were these feelings. So it really has to go from your head to your heart, then to your hands. Because you could have something in your head about, oh, I should exercise, I should meditate, I should eat really well today, I should prioritize my sleep, do these things. But if you're not acting with your hands, check it with the second age, which is your heart. So I believe purpose is a feeling. and it's a feeling of feeling the reward that will come from acting, and maybe even the consequence of not acting. And if you can't get a feeling on either of those, maybe you shouldn't be doing those things. Like maybe those actions aren't aligned with a value that you hold dear. And so maybe it's, if we're talking about time management or where you put your energy towards, I believe the most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. In this case, the most important things are to keep the most important things the most important things. And so what's the purpose? So then you could feel the benefits. Like just as a simple example, I saw an acquaintance recently, and this gentleman was very unhealthy as long as I've known him. And I was just always doing these, everything that you would know, you would the opposite of what you should do to be healthy. And then he just, all his family, friends always advise him, just, hey, you should stop doing this and maybe start doing this. And he never listened, and he ended up having a heart attack and triple bypass surgery and everything, and almost lost life. And you get out, and he still went back to his old lifestyle. And then a couple years later, I see him on the street, and he's like picture of health. Just like he looked amazing, and his energy just changed. And I had to ask, I was like, well, what happened? And because, like you had the heart attack, nothing changed after that. He's like, he saw his, one day he went into the house and his daughter was crying and sobbing uncontrollably. And he went to see, like, what's the matter? What happened? And he finds out that she's so worried and distressed that he's not going to be around to walk her down the aisle. And, and that just changed, that's purpose, and changed his behavior. He stopped smoking, started eating, he started doing all the things he's always wanted to do, but he never felt the purpose. So that purpose. Now my mind went, okay, if somebody just has enough purpose, will they always follow through? And I was like, no, there's something missing. They could be missing E. And that E, as you talk a lot about, is energy. Because somebody, let's say they want to work out. I'm using it as a simple example that everyone can relate to because everyone's from different industries and everything and has different outcomes. But let's say they haven't slept in 3 days because they have a newborn and they're just exhausted. They have no energy. They're not going to be very motivated to work out. Or we know leaders are readers. If somebody has decades of experience like you do, and you put it into a book and somebody could read that book in a few days or a handful of days, you can download decades in days. That's the biggest advantage in life. I can't think of a bigger advantage that if you could take decades and then, download them in days. And so, you should read. It takes about the average person, 45 minutes a day of reading to get through one book a week, the average reader, the average reading speed. So when I say we triple someone's reading speed, we do it in 15 minutes a day, where people could read and get more comprehension than skimming and scanning and stuff, but actually understand it. But going back to this, let's say you wanted to read, that's your motivation, you have purpose, you feel it, but you ate a big, processed meal and you're in a food coma, you lack the energy, so you're not going to be very motivated to study, or prepare for that meeting or to read, right? So energy is important. That's why in the book we talk about 10 keys for mental vitality, for people who suffer from brain fatigue. And my mind went, okay, you have purpose and somebody has energy. Will they always be motivated? Your kids, your team members, because they need that, right? Like a team member's not, and it's a skit, right? Even before this, there's studies suggesting over 80% of team members aren't engaged, right, in the work that they're doing. So they need to find purpose. They need energy. That's why wellness is so important. And then I was like, okay, will they always be motivated? I was like, no, there's one thing missing. S3, small, simple steps. At 3 S's, small, simple steps, meaning some people can have purpose, they can have energy, but they don't know what to do, or that thing is too big. Maybe it's I want to create the next $1 million business online, or I want to have the perfect body. I want to meet my soulmate and live happily ever after. Whatever it is, maybe it's just too unclear or too intimidating, and a confused mind is not motivated. A confused mind doesn't do anything. So a small, simple step in the example of working out. Maybe working out an hour a day is way too big for somebody who doesn't do that consistently. Maybe a small, simple step is putting on your running shoes. Maybe that it's reading 45 minutes a day. That's like, wow, how do I go from not reading, maybe reading one book a year to reading 45 minutes a day? Maybe that's too big of a step. A small, simple step is opening up the book or reading one line in a book. Because I believe little by little, a little becomes a lot. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's just way too hard for people. And so how you get your small, simple step, your S3, or your children's S3, or your teammates' S3, ask a simple question. what is the tiniest action I can take that gives me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? What is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal or value where I can't fail? Because it requires so little energy, so little effort. And after little by little, you start developing momentum. And then, so that's motivation, P times E times S3. So you have mindset, motivation, and then finally you have the methods. And then, so now we go through a process where people believe it's possible, they believe they're capable, they believe they deserve it. They find purpose in this, in reading or remembering or learning or marketing or any area, investing. And then they have energy, and then they have small, simple steps. Then you can give them the method, which is really the process, where mindset is the possibility, motivation is the purpose, then the actual methods is the actual process. Now, to put a little, a check mark on this, where you see mindset and motivation cross over, I'm going to give you 3 I's, is inspiration. Mindset and motivation, where they cross over, you have inspiration. And you have mindset experts, you have mindset coaches, for athletic teams, you have mindset books. A great book by Dr. Carol Dweck called Mindset. It's a must read for leaders, educators, parents. Must read Mindset, right? And you have motivational speakers and motivational books. And where they cross over, you have something called inspiration. You have inspirational speakers, inspirational books, inspirational movies. You watch an inspiring movie, it changes your mindset about what's possible, and it gives you some energy, right? And so it's inspiration, but you have inspiration, but you don't know what to do because you don't have the method. Right? And where mindset crosses over with method, you have ideation. Mindset is you believe it's possible and you know what to do, but you're lacking the motivation. So it just stays an idea, and it's ideation. And where motivation crosses over with methods, you have the 3rd I, which is implementation. Implementation. And I have this right here. I could just show people. So it looks something like this. I don't know if everyone could see this, but you have mindset, motivation, where all 3 of them come together. You have the 4th I, because with motivation and methods, you have implementation, and so you're doing it, but you could still be stuck in that box because you're only going to be able to achieve what you believe is possible, or what you believe you're capable of, or what you believe you deserve. The 4th I is where everything comes together in the middle, and that is integration. Right there in the middle is where all 3 I's and 3 M's come together. And you have a 4th I, which is integration. Integration, like integer or integral, it means you're whole. And integration is just who you are. And that is the goal for Limitless. That's the limitless state. And so I know you like frameworks, and I'm a big admirer of yours. Especially the 2 of the ones we've talked about in the past. But that's how I look everything through. And so if I'm looking to create limitless teams or limitless kids, I'm looking at it through the lens of this framework, or myself. If I feel like there's a gap between where I am and where I want to be, and I'm not making progress, then I say, okay, everyone can do this. It becomes a tool, a lens to look at through, a blueprint to look through where you see it. And it's like, okay, where's my gap here? Where am I limited? Because most limits are learned, right? I was for people that know my story, like I wasn't, broken, but I was installed. Like one of my adults said that, that's the boy with the broken brain. And then that label became my limit. It put me in that box. So most labels are learned. We learned our beliefs. We learned our habits. We learned our methods. Maybe those methods need to be updated for today. New investing, new methods for health, new methods for reading, new methods for memory, new methods. And so when you are stuck, you could go through and say, is the limit in my mindset? Do I not believe it's possible? No, I believe it's possible. Do I not believe I'm capable of it? Do I not believe I deserve it? That income or that relationship or that, whatever it happens to be. Or am I limited in my purpose? Am I not feeling that allow myself to feel that those feelings, the purpose? Or am I limited in my energy? Am I spending time with energy vampires that are stealing my energy, my dream? Am I just so stressed? And stress consumes an immense amount of energy, like fear, especially what's going on right now, uses a lot of energy. Or am I making it too big? Do I need to break it down and just don't overthink it? Like, let's simplify. What are the small, simple steps I can take right now? Or am I just using old methods or unconscious methods that aren't getting me where I need to go? And it becomes a framework for role modeling people who are successful, because you can say, okay, what's their belief about this? You know, what do they believe they're capable of? You know, how are they tapping into their purpose? What are they doing for energy and fuel? You know, what are the small, simple steps they're taking on a daily basis? Or what are the methodologies for investing or teaching or health and wellness or learning that they're applying? So everything falls in that model for me.
And that that model can be applied now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So this is what I love about the frameworks within the book, because it gives people the blueprint. Like you said, there might be a book on mindset that's written 15 years from now, but if you know how to bring it all together using your models in the Limitless book, it's just perfect. And the other good thing about the book, and you're very generous with it, is that you've referenced a lot of other books for people to read, which are relevant for that particular topic. So absolutely love that. So what I might do now, if that's okay with yourself, Jim, is just to get some questions answered from some of our people. So the first one is from Alex. Alex writes, are you able to give us an insight on how kids' brains work and how parents should adapt to best interact with their kids?
That's wonderful. Alex Blank. I actually see everybody in here. So I see Alex here as the attendee. It's a great question, Alex. And so, yes, absolutely. I'm actually writing right now 2 bonus chapters for the book, and we're almost done with them. We'll finishing them up, this next couple weeks. But it's Limitless for teens and Limitless for children. And so these are bonus chapters we're offering digitally. So when people go to Limitless book and we have their email on file, because they submitted their receipt information, we're going to send digital copies to everybody there. And so this is what I'm very excited about, because while I love working with adults, a lot of what I'm doing is teaching them. I'm trying to unravel bad habits and unlearn bad habits of mindset and motivation and their methods, right? And so to be able to work with children before they install these beliefs, or they install these poor ways of reading or studying or focusing, it's something I'm very passionate about, especially with what I went through. So going back into this, there's so many touch points for this using this framework. I'll just go through a couple of them. The best thing it's been my experience working with children for my whole career for almost 3 decades is first of all to first model the behavior, meaning that the children are always watching, and they're going to do what you do rather than what you say, certainly. And so that's first and foremost, because I believe the life you live are the lessons you teach everybody around you, children and otherwise. Even in business, you could preach something, but like a manager could preach something to his team, but the team knows whether that manager is actually living it also as well. So I would start always in alignment with that. Going into any part of this book, the 3 books, you could go into mindset. Talking about Dr. Carol Dweck's work, in terms of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. I know a number of people are familiar with that, but fundamentally it's saying, you're not rewarding, calling children gifted, or not calling them genius, or something that's saying that it's fixed, because what happens in terms of the research, I'm grossly summarizing this just in terms of time's sake, is that when they fail, which inevitably we do, right? We're never perfect. Then they feel like that it's fixed, that it's either something that they have or don't have, as opposed to rewarding them for, wow, that's amazing, the effort you put into it. You reward discipline, you reward effort, because if you reward and reinforce those, then we know that persistence and that consistently will always show up, so people can be able to produce, as opposed to a fixed mindset where they feel like they're either good at math or good at this, or they're not. And so that would be one area of mindset. For children also in the motivation area, this is a fun area to play in. Take any of those PE S3s, E especially, energy. a lot of children are, they need energy to be able to focus. And maybe sometimes they have an abundance of energy, but just, the things that we've talked about on stage that you could do for children in terms of giving them the great brain diet, in terms of what to eat matters, especially for their gray matter. And there's a whole area of science we talk about in the book called neuronutrition, that our brains have different nutritional requirements than the rest of your body. Or, also going back to mindset, the negative thoughts, because, then you using terms like, if somebody says, child says, I'm not good at studying, you could go and help them reframe that. So I'm not good at studying yet, or, adding a simple word like yet, or reframing it into something more positive so that they're aware of their self-talk. Because I believe your brain is like a supercomputer, so is your children's brain. And if they say something out loud, like, then their self-talk is the program will run. So if they say, I'm not good at, studying, or I'm not good at remembering names or whatever, you won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. So a lot of areas in there that you could have touch points on as well. Positive peer group. We know that we are the average of the people we spend time with the most, including your children. That it's not just their neurological networks, it's their social networks. And again, you can't manage all of this perfectly. It's not about being perfect. It's just about making a little progress. But your children are such great learners because they have these mirror neurons. And as I said, that they are always imitating what's around them most. That's why they adopt the same language, the same habits, the same eating patterns as people they spend time with. And things like sleep. Sleep is a big challenge, especially with children, when they go into school. Like the children's brain, especially young ones, they're not really set up to start studying at 7, 8, and developed in a way that they're ready to kind of, especially teenagers also as well. And yet we have them on these kind of set schedules. And sometimes we have to make the best of it. And other times, it helps to know your chronotype or your children's chronotype. There's these, early bird night thing. There's a whole bunch of areas there. So, I could go on and on, but especially in the methods, obviously, there's a lot of methods that I would teach a child to give them a clear advantage.
On that note, I actually might introduce Matthew McCool, who is a school teacher, owns a thriving tutoring business in Sydney's eastern suburbs, and and he's a big fan, and he wants to ask a few questions as well. So
Absolutely.
I'll loop him in.
Matt.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity, Jim.
It's good to see you, Matt.
You too. So I've loved the 3Ms model, first of all. I've made some notes here, and I've got some ideas and questions from students and parents that I think are very relevant to what you're saying, because as teachers and parents, I can see where the 3Ms fits in to what we do. And I think especially at a high branch tutoring, all teachers understand the methods. I feel like teachers get the methods step right easier than all the other M's, because they know what to teach. They know the steps outlined there. And you mentioned that S3, teachers call that scaffolding, which is when you give, a student a giant task or assessment, it needs to be broken up into those small achievable steps in order for them to achieve it. So methods is easy to achieve, and that's what we outline in all our lessons and study videos. But I suppose where it gets a bit challenging is with motivation and mindset. And that's something we are big preachers of in our lessons and programs. But especially with motivation, I find a common question that pops up is, students of all ages in primary school, it's easy to answer the question, when am I going to use this in real life? And it's easy in year 7 and year 8 and year 9. Starts to get a bit harder later on in high school when we're, doing trigonometry or calculus or analyzing the works of Shakespeare. And I feel like purpose is the number one fundamental, because I believe that all our students can achieve success academically. But where they go, south is in motivation. Where do they actually see the value in what they're doing? Because if you get a child that's interested in something and engaged in it, they will surprise everyone. They will achieve better results than even what we expected them to. What is your advice for children in finding their purpose and motivation in school when they have to study something or participate in something that they normally wouldn't select as their own choosing?
Yeah. No, and I'm not saying it's interesting when we're talking about purpose, energy, and small, simple steps. It's that simple, and it's also that hard. You know what I mean? So it's not, I'm not saying at all that this is an easy thing in terms of, but it's definitely difficult. And often a lot of the things that are worth anything is takes effort without a doubt. So let me just frame it that way. So working with children, obviously purpose, as you described it, when a child sees the relevancy of something, there's purpose behind it. Or at a meta level, like they could apply it towards something, they could see why it's important. And if they can't at that level, at a meta level, it might be interesting as a part of our mindset to demonstrate for a child that this whole process is like, we're talking a lot about mental exercise and mental fitness. Like this is, reframing the learning process where children naturally are very great learners, right? Without any kind of extra training, they absorb information. They have this natural curiosity or bewilderment about things. They're willing to fail, even if we're taking, a toddler. How many times does a child fall before they learn how to be able to walk? And never after the 20th time of falling do they say, okay, walking is just not for me. That wouldn't make any sense, right? Because everyone does. But later on as adults, sometimes we'll try coding or karaoke or learn less salsa, and we just try it once or twice, and then we feel like we look bad. So to be able to preserve that, I'm not saying it's at all easy, but all learning is state dependent, that I've found. All learning is state dependent, meaning that the state you learn something in gets encoded in the information, and it not only helps you to remember it better, but it also helps you to be able to that state you learn it in is apt to help you to jumpstart that activity. So like when I was doing a talk in Silicon Valley a few years ago, and afterwards Bill Gates comes up to me. He was in the audience, and he asked me. We start talking. I asked him, like, if you get one superpower, what would it be? And it's like reading, because readers. I was like, it's like, I totally help you with that. And he was like, we started having this conversation about the future of education. And I was talking about from a meta learning standpoint, accelerated learning theory, learning how to learn, which I think is the most important thing to teach is teaching children how to learn so they could apply it towards Spanish, history, science, and anything else, right? And then he was talking about it from a technology standpoint. It's tools and technology in terms of the future education. And then a whole crowd, I posted this on Instagram, was gathering around us and listening in, and somebody says, is there anything missing? If you have the theory and you have the tools, the technologies, what else is missing? And then we came to the same conclusion. It's exactly this. It's human motivation, because a lot of people have access to these tools, or they know what to do, but they're still not doing it. And so, going back to children, this love of experimentation, this love, and I'm really big on play and experimentation, as anyone has seen me on stage, where I make it as interactive. I try to tap into, these games with the big children, chronologically adults, to be able to play and engage. And then often I get kickback from pushback from somebody saying, oh, I stopped playing because I grew older. And I was like, no, you grew older because you stopped playing. And I think it's important for children to find challenge, to be able to, at a meta level in terms of mindset, we teach them that this challenge is normal, that this is something that they should embrace. Just like as somebody would, if they're working out, they're exercising their muscle, and they're not looking at the weights, upset at the weights. They're using this as an opportunity to challenge their mind, to get mentally fit, to be able to be playful, to come up with new solutions. And it goes back to a lot of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. But I think their purpose could be not the actual, it could be actually the learning itself, that they're building, in terms of focus and remembering things and understanding things, and a love for learning. I can't think of anything that would be more important to install in a child than a love for the process of learning, as difficult or as easy as it is. That and a sense of responsibility, meaning that I really do believe if I can install something in me, as when I was going through my learning challenges, I would be that I was 100% responsible for my life. Because I feel like if anybody of any age or stage believes that they are responsible for the world that they are creating, then they have, at least with great responsibility, they'll have great power to make things better.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. And that's why in a lot of our lessons, we incorporate real world activities so that they can, in a fun way, apply what they're learning to a real world task that then makes more more sense to them. But I suppose, you know, nowadays, students are learning in an extraordinary time, I feel, even compared to, you know, when I was 10 or 12 years old. Now, everything is so much faster. There's so much more information available. Kids are so busy nowadays with sport, co-curricular, learning a musical instrument. And on top of that, they need to maintain their, you know, social schedule, which used to be a lot simpler. You know, you just go and kick a ball. But now there's, you know, Snapchat, Instagram, there's all these other networks that are going off. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, if you were, let's say, a student in school today, what would it be in terms of managing all that with your academics?
Yeah, and so my answer would be, it's interesting because a lot of people's mind go to balance, and I don't use the word balance as much, because for me it denotes everything has to be weighted exactly the same, and that's a little bit stressful. But a harmony is an interesting thing for me. Even what's like, just like an orchestra, like not everybody performs the same amount of time, but it comes out as a beautiful art. Teaching children that there's an art and science to success and happiness is an interesting idea. You know, frameworks like Sam's that he's developed, I think that should be must-have learning, you know, back in school, so they could make the most important things, you know, their life, their work of art. Meaning not in just a cliche way. It would be to put energy into the things, because we only have our time and our attention, right? Not everything is equal, whether kids or not. We don't have equal education. We don't have equal like networks. We don't have equal amount of money, whatever. We have equal amount of 24 hours in a day, you know, and showing kids that their time and their attention is what their life is made out of. And then what they put their time and energy into is they'll get more of. And so like even right now with everyone cocooning, you know, I'm telling clients right now, I use the metaphor of a butterfly because I feel like we're going through a life cycle. Like when right now feel like we're shut in, or, you know, physically distancing ourselves, and we're alone with our thoughts and our doubts and our fears and we're feeling alone and all these things. What can you do? And I have a quote in the book from a French philosopher that says, life is the C between B and D. Life is C between B and D. And B stands for birth, D stands for death, C stands for choice. And that's life. It's a series of choices, going back to personal responsibility. And so with children having all these options, much more than I had, you know, like growing up as a kid, I would go back and just give kids a sense that they are responsible, and then there are also consequences too, you know, because part of it is that they have to learn through feedback, and I believe feedback is the breakfast of superheroes. But also realizing that, you know, there is an opportunity cost with every choice and decision that we make, that we could put, you know, and one part of it is also giving children enough stimulus to see what lights them up. Like even as adults that come to me and say, I feel so burnt out because I'm doing so much. I'm like, maybe you're so burnt out not because you're doing so much. Maybe you're burnt out because you're doing too little of the things that light you up, you know, that make you feel alive. And so, you know, with children, giving them enough stimulus and novelty to see where their minds go and their hearts flow, and then helping them to nourish that, because what you nourish flourishes. You know, as opposed to for a lot of people I know, and I spent a lot of time on the other side working with seniors who, you know, at the later age, you know, stage of life. And you know, because I work with seniors and senior centers, helping them polish off their memories and such, I also hear a lot of regrets at that stage also. And the biggest regret at that stage, going back, is that they wish that they somehow limited their life because of expectations of other people. Like it was like they didn't pursue this relationship because of what people would think, or they pursued a specific career because that's what their parents expected of them, you know. And it's an interesting road. You know, and again, like learning sometimes, like life, is messy, right? So we're putting names and labels onto things just so it take some invisible things more visible, so we could have some, you know, hopefully some positive influence and impact on it.
That's right, and I love the books behind you, and you know that just leads on to what one of our students said, and this is how I used to feel when I was in school. I wasn't much of a reader when I was younger. I liked my science and maths, but I always found reading to be a challenge. I was a slow reader, and a lot of our students have said to us, especially for English, their reading and they have to reread the same paragraph 3 times because halfway through reading it, they start thinking about something else. They don't actually absorb what they're reading. Is that because the content's not interesting, or is there techniques they can use to help them read faster, like you say?
Yeah, there are two things I could give you really quick for individuals of any ages that read something, have to read it over and over again, or they read it and then they just forget it, or they go back and such. Two things that will help you get over that. First of all, there are these lies that I always talk about. There's a lie to reading is that faster readers have less comprehension, right? You would think if I asked you to read faster, you would understand less. Now we have a lot of data on this, and with students in every country in the world. And so we actually find that the faster readers actually have better comprehension because they have better focus. Because here's the thing, your brain is this incredible supercomputer. I'll tell you where distraction comes from. Your brain's this incredible supercomputer, and yet we feed the supercomputer when we read one word at time. Metaphorically, what we're doing is we're starving our brain, and if we don't give your mind the stimulus it's craving, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction. So often we are distracting ourselves because we're actually reading too slow. It's like if we're driving very slow in your neighborhood or traffic, you're not really focused on the act of driving. What are you doing? People are sipping their coffee, they're singing, they're texting, they're having a conversation, thinking about the drive. They're doing 5 things going slowly. But if you're racing cars and taking hairpin turns, do you have more or less focus? You have a lot more focus. You're only focused on 2 things, the act of driving and what's in front of you. Same thing with readers. And so one of the ways to get that is using a visual pacer. So literally we've tested tens of thousands of individuals. When you use your finger to just underline, or a pen or a highlighter or a mouse on a computer, that visual pacer will actually help maintain your focus, and you'll read 25 to 50% faster. And you'll have better focus because you won't naturally go back and back skip, because a bad habit that we picked up back in school is regression and back skipping. So that actually, and don't take my word for it, everyone should just read for 60 seconds and then use their finger while they read, count the number of lines, and that number will be about 25-50% lift. Just as a quick tip. The second thing I would help everybody here is the questions that you ask are key. Questions are the answer. And I think in reading and in life, and most people aren't asking the right questions, or at least quality questions. Even when I'm talking about here, like every single chapter, and back in school, remember you had to read all of those paragraphs, and at the end they give you the questions. And just basic test taking 101 is look at the questions first and then read. And then, because then there's an answer, there's an answer, there's an answer. Because when you ask a question, it stimulates that part of your brain. They call it a reticular activating system, RAS for short. And it just, your mind becomes a magnet with every question. And so, in the beginning, you notice in the beginning of every single chapter that we start with very specific questions so people could charge their reticular activating system. So then they're like, oh, that's the answer. That's why habits don't work when some people they do this, that kind of thing. And so asking questions, like whether you're reading a book or listening to a podcast or a conversation or a lecture, you always have the responsibility to stay curious. Like even if I'm in an audience waiting to go on stage, and people are asleep next to me because the instructor, I won't get bored with them. I will be like, wow, I'll be so curious. I'll be like, how's this guy boring every single person in this room all at the same time? That's fascinating to me. And I'll get curious about that. And so I would say when you're reading, to get the most out of your reading, if you want greater speed, use your finger while you read. If you want more comprehension, ask more questions. You ask more questions, you get more answers.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm so passionate about this because my goal is to make this the most read. It's doing really well in sales, but I want to make this most not bought book, but the most read book. Because a lot of people buy books and it sits on your shelf and it becomes shelf help, not self-help. And people are buying a book is a very different skill set than reading a book. And some people are really good at putting books into the cart and buying them. But not many people are good at reading them. And my goal is when people go to limitlessbook.com, they get a 10-day video, audio companion course on speed reading, memory, focus. So that way that when the book arrives, their skill set is improved. In psychology, they call it a competence-confidence loop. And the more competent and skilled you get at something, the more confident you get. Like I don't play much golf, But if I could play golf like one of the pros, I'd be on the golf course all the time with my dad and my brother and everything. But I just don't do it, because I'm not very good at it. And so it's frustrating. But if I was good, just like reading is for a lot of people. And so that's why chapter 4, it's actually how to read this book and any other, how to read and remember this in any other book ever. Because if you watch Lord of the Rings or read Lord of the Rings, it's like the one ring to rule them all. I want this to be the one book to learn them all, because this book will teach you how to learn everything else after that. And I know if a child loves to learn, especially if they love to read, then that's going to be a huge advantage. Like when people see me with pictures of me and Oprah and Elon Musk and Bill Gates and, all these individuals, that came from Richard Branson, that came from our love of reading. Like I bonded with all those individuals over our favorite books. And I realized that commonality is they love to learn, and leaders are readers. And so that's why I wanted to write this book, to help people to read more, because I want to be an advocate for, reading.
No, that's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. That's a perfect way to round off. I can't believe our hour is up, and it's a Sunday here, and everyone's looking forward to get out into the sunshine. But most of all, thank you for your time. The book is New York Times bestseller, #1 on Amazon. Every day it's shifting higher and higher across all platforms where it's sold. It's an incredible book. It's a beautiful gift that you've given the world, because like you said, because it teaches us how to read and learn for life, and not learn what's in the book. It's absolutely beautiful. It's, as I said, it's climbed to it's in the top 5 books of all time for me. I've been a reader for a long time, and I thank you so much for your time and your energy, and you're incredible. I could ask you so many questions on how you stay.
I know. I just want to just thank you and your entire team and family for doing what you do, because I think in times of crisis, this is what the world needs more. Is they need community. They need people around them that I was talking about, a positive peer group, people that encourage them, that challenge them, that serve them, that support them, that cheerlead for them, that believe in them. And if you haven't found those people, then my recommendation for some people is to be that person for somebody else, and especially be that person for you. Be that person for yourself. And so I believe that, going back to choice, the power of choice, that these difficult times, again, they could define us, or these difficult times can diminish us, or these difficult times can develop us. Ultimately, we decide, every single day. And so my recommendation is, do not downgrade your dreams to, like everyone's like, when you're in fight or flight, chronic stress and fears suppresses your immune system, makes more susceptible to colds, the flus, the viruses. It's a whole area of science called psychoneuroimmunology. And I'm just saying, you don't want to give into fear, because, and this is why, don't downgrade your dreams to meet this current situation. What you want to do is, instead, I offer you another option. Instead of downgrading your dreams to meet this current situation, upgrade your mindset, your motivation, and your methods to be able to meet your dreams, to meet your destiny. But thank you for the great work that you do. Thank you for everyone who tuned in for this on a Sunday morning, to be able to share. And my final words are, I leave with this, is that I wish your days be full of lots of life and love, lots of laughter, and always lots of learning. Always learning.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.